Hello, everybody. My name is Markus Hofer from the Russell Reynolds office in Switzerland. I'm here today with my colleague Dana Krueger from the Amsterdam office. We're both very happy and delighted to welcome Marie-France Tschudin to join us in our podcast series on sustainable leadership in action. As a very quick introduction to Marie-France, she's the President of Novartis Pharmaceuticals, one of the world's leading pharmaceutical organizations, with more than 32,000 employees across the world. By education background, Marie-France started with a bachelor in the US from Georgetown University, complemented with an MBA at IMD in Switzerland. And prior to joining Novartis back in 2017 as their head of region Europe, she had an extensive career with several roles with Celgene for more than 10 years. Marie-France, thanks a lot for being with us today. And I know this is a topic very dear and close to your own heart. With that, maybe switching over to you, Novartis' purpose is to reimagine medicines to improve and extend people's lives. How are you personally thinking and talking about purpose?
Thank you, Markus and Dana, and lovely to be with you today. So thanks for asking about purpose, because that's really very, very important to me personally and to so many people across the organizations. The way we think and talk about purpose is really that patients can't wait. When you think that there are people who are sick and they're progressing in their disease, we need to make sure that they have better access to medicines faster. And like my colleagues who work in the industry, purpose is really personal to me. It's the reason why I stayed in this industry, and I think personally it brings people together around a common goal. I'm often reminded of a story that happened early in my career. I was a sales rep in Lisbon, waiting outside a physician's office. And as he was saying goodbye to his patient, he called me over and said to her, "This is a person who talks to me about this medication that you're taking." And at that point, she turned to me and started talking about how much better she felt and how much more she could do. And honestly, I really don't remember the details. If I fast forward a year, I received a package from that same physician at the office with a note and a book. The note was from the physician saying that lady who was a writer had passed away, and she had asked the physician to send me her book of short stories, which she said she was only able to finish thanks to the energy and the strength that that medicine had given her. Now, that lady stayed with me for 25 years because that is what we can do for people and their families. And what I want to do, what my team wants to do, is we want to make that happen for twice as many patients, twice as fast. And that's our aspiration. Today, the reality is that there's still too many people who are waiting too long for the right diagnosis and for the right care. And if I could just give you an example, we know that on average, a person suffering from ankylosing spondylitis, now this is a really painful inflammatory disease that affects the spine and large joints. These patients, on average, will wait 9 years just to be correctly diagnosed. What that means to me is that we've got to focus on bringing our amazing medicines to patients and customers in a way that's just as innovative as our science. So this is the why. And so how do we get to the how? How are we going to do this? How do we achieve our aspiration? We need to be bold, and we need to center our strategies around customers and their needs. We need to understand how the world is changing around us. If you look at healthcare systems today, there's a huge amount of strain, and that's only going to get more acute, especially now after COVID. The evolution that we see from patients being patients to being healthcare consumers. And when you think about all of the digitalization that's ongoing in healthcare, so whether you're a patient waiting to be diagnosed or treated, whether you're a physician who wants to prescribe a better medicine, or a healthcare system that needs absolutely find affordable solutions to deliver on patient outcomes, we can actually make a difference. And if we focus on working with customers and creating those partnerships that are not only focused on the short term, but on the mid to long term, we can better understand, anticipate, and deliver the needs, create the solutions that are not only transformational, but they're sustainable.
So Marie-France, thank you for giving us such a comprehensive view on how you're rallying teams around purpose, but also how you're impacting the world and guaranteeing access to medicines and advancing treatment. I mean, it's very inspirational. So thank you for that. I want to pick up on one of the comments you made. You said purpose is very personal to me. If we could ask you now to turn the spotlight back on yourself as a very successful executive in the pharmaceutical industry, you know, your passion around purpose is clear. We can almost feel it in this conversation. But if you think about purpose on a very personal level and the successes that you've achieved to date as a leader, what might you tell us?
Finding the balance, right, between the things that I have a passion for is truly important to me. So, you know, we talked about the purpose in my job and what I love doing, but it's also important to me to be a mom, a wife, a daughter, and a really good friend to people in my life outside work. I think where I take the most pride is really balancing this demanding job that I have and my family. I'm a mother of 2 young boys, and I try to be a person that can be present in the moment because I realize how important that is for the long term. I'm always going to try to stay true to myself and grounded in what really matters to me, no matter what. And if I think about my professional life, I think there are 2 things that really drive me. One is clearly centered around the purpose that we have as a team. We talk about it all the time, transforming the standard of care for twice as many patients, twice as fast. And like I said, I think, you know, given our unique internal capabilities, we're positioned to help identify and solve those inefficiencies in the system. But I also believe that we can only be successful if we're bold about the way we operate. And that's my, let's say, second work passion, which is how do we create the most awesome teams? How do we create enterprise leaders who are bold in their thinking, who are collaborative, who have a win as one mindset, who are broad in their thinking, take a long-term perspective and are capable of understanding the importance of customer needs, building partnerships, transforming organizations, and developing people who think boldly, who collaborate to drive results and inspire beyond their own role is a real passion of mine and something that, honestly, if you ask me what I would like my legacy to be, that's what I would like my legacy to be.
That's very well said and very well put, Marie-France. One thing I like and would like to take maybe to the next question, we're talking about teams and create teams and get them to perform and actually be not as individuals, but as a group, striving through that purpose and mission. That brings me to the topic of culture. Could you elaborate a little bit how you create a culture that allows this and gets your team to get the best out and fulfill the purpose where you want to go? How do you drive a culture and what do you feel is important in the cultural aspect?
Yeah, so in my view, culture is absolutely inextricably linked with business results. There's so much uncertainty in the things that we do. And if there's been one year where that's just been a fact, it's been this year. So no one has the answers or the clarity on what the future will bring. And so you've got to be supporting an organization and finding those answers and taking the right bold decisions through the culture that you create. So the accountability that you create in an organization. And as many of you have heard, Novartis has embarked on this journey of inspired, curious, and unbossed. And what that really is about is creating a growth mindset, creating the curiosity of asking the questions, of being externally focused, of thinking about customers and competitors and other industries, and then empowering people to take ownership for what they're doing. I feel like the biggest contribution I can make is helping the organization shift from a me view to a we view and creating a collaborative culture where you're bringing in diversity of thinking, asking yourselves the right questions, and then making better decisions at the end of the day.
And Marie-France, let's pick up on that topic of diversity. At the end of the day, Novartis's purpose is also, at its core, it's about bringing new innovations to the world. What is your view on the link between diversity and innovation? So beyond curiosity, what is its importance and how are you thinking about advancing diversity around innovation?
Yes, I do believe that diversity does drive innovation, and it also drives better decisions and performance. And for me, that's why I'm very, very deliberate about bringing diversity into building our teams. I believe we've got to move away from this traditional thinking about, being very focused on, does this person have the right roles and characteristics? And I honestly think that what has gotten us here is just not going to bring us where we need to go. And therefore, we need people who have different ideas, experiences, are willing to experiment. I mean, in the past, if you didn't have the sort of sales rep experience, it was very difficult for you to get into a commercial role. And I think those days are gone. I think we've got to bring in people from other industries like digital. We've got to have a much broader definition of diversity. Gender is important, but there's so much more. It's different cultural backgrounds, education, experiences that ensure this diversity of thinking. And my own experience with that is that you honestly create a much more inclusive culture where people speak up, where they're curious, where they listen to each other. You have the debate, and in the end, you walk away with a much stronger alignment and just better decisions.
One quick follow-up, because I'm curious how you're implementing these ideas. Are you approaching talent management and development differently, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to. And it's a constant for us. So we can't just have one plan and then stick to that plan. We have to look at slate of candidates. What are we looking for? Are we looking at different types of leaders? Do we have disruptors in our team? Do we have people who are perhaps more inspirational and take the team along? And do we have drivers? Do we have people who are actually going to focus on getting the work done? And having a good balance between these three profiles is key.
Towards the later part of our discussion, I would like to switch the discussion also a little bit on the external side and the perception of the healthcare industry. As Novartis has one of its priorities, building trust in society, and we all know that the public perception of healthcare may sometimes be quite mixed. And now, especially in COVID, it has taken several sides and several opinions. As leading one of the largest and most influential healthcare companies, what do you hope to play the role in shaping that perception of the industry going forward?
So great question. Thank you for asking that. And so building trust with society has been a strategic priority for us. And I think it just becomes more and more important now that you see healthcare in the spotlight. We are doing a lot to build trust with society. We've committed, for example, to broad and fast access of our latest medical innovation for people in lower income countries. And we're making that happen. So we are basically filing our regulatory files at the same time, regardless of geography. We're also delivering more affordable generics and biosimilars. We're committed to doing what is ethically right. So this year, even in the middle of a pandemic, we've launched our new code of ethics. And there are many more examples that I could give you internally about what it is that we're trying to do from an ecological perspective, from making sure that we're creating sustainability throughout our value chain. There are a lot of initiatives, and we take this extremely seriously. But I do want to talk a little bit more broadly about what I've seen specifically this year, and then maybe focus a little bit more on specifically what I think that my organization can do to build trust with society. So perhaps more broadly, I've been incredibly impressed this year about the level of collaboration between industry, academia, governments to find a solution around COVID-19. And I truly hope that not only for industry, but just for society as a whole, that becomes an example that we can follow. Because I do believe that when people come together to try and solve major problems, we can actually do it. And the actual speed with which things have happened this year is really incredible. So we need to further expand this collaboration to also fight other healthcare challenges together and other societal needs that may need to be addressed. And then more specifically, where I think we're evolving to is, again, going back to what do our customers need? So whether they're patients, healthcare systems, or physicians, how do we try to either pursue precision medicine where it makes sense? So ensuring that really only those patients who can benefit from a treatment will receive it. So I do think we can do more in that space, but also more comprehensively, how do we make broader access possible? So more affordable prices, but working with the systems on sort of population health-like agreements. And I'll give you one example that we're working very diligently for in the cardiovascular disease space. So this is an area where the costs are tremendous. So it costs over $1 trillion for the healthcare systems worldwide to care for cardiovascular patients. And many patients will still not have the right access to medicines or treatments due to a lot of the non-clinical barriers in the system. And so what we're aiming to do is to work with governments, work with payers, work with insurance companies to pursue some of these population health agreements, which are essentially partnerships to accelerate access to transformative therapies so we can not only fight the disease, but improve outcomes overall. And we're being very bold about this. We talk about bending the curve of life. And in order to do that, we just need to really work in partnership in a very different way. So as a conclusion, I think we still have a lot of work to do, and it's going to take time. But I do think that we're in a position now with the medicines that we have, with the capabilities that we have, with the leaders that we're creating, with the culture that we want to achieve in the company to start to solve some of the urgent problems of healthcare today, but also helping to create stronger and more sustainable healthcare systems for tomorrow.
Marie-France, it's been a delight to have you for this conversation. And thank you for really sharing openly about this push, this drive, this stride to advance purpose that Novartis is clearly rallying behind and succeeding at. It's just been really inspirational to hear. Also, thank you for opening up about your own leadership. You know, it's not only our pleasure to spend time with you today, but boy, is Novartis lucky to have you, and as the whole industry is. So thank you. And we look forward to staying in touch.